This is Capital Games. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. We've got some news, which means the gaming year is starting off with a bang? I don't know about a bang, but it's
I'd say so.
Yeah, really? Yeah, okay, good. So it's starting off with a bang, and with news from Ubisoft. Now, Ubisoft in the past year, I would say past couple of years, have not had many big releases. They've been releasing content for their older games, namely Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, a bunch of the Tom Clancy games, Rainbow Six Siege specifically. Oh, they had Extraction last year, which I think everyone forgot about within a month. But yeah, they've been basically supporting those old titles for the most part in the past, I'd say, year or two, okay? Ubisoft has announced that they have canceled 3 unannounced games that have been long in development in order for a cost-saving measure, since they had low sales in the past year. On top of that, they've also delayed again Skull and Bones, a game that was due out, I believe it was February of this year, and has now been moved past to the first quarter of their fiscal year, which is April 2023 on this. So, Zero, what were your thoughts of the announcement that Ubisoft made regarding their canceled games that have not been announced, so no one knows what they are specifically, but what are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because I think really my bigger question is, I wonder which studios were behind them, because I think they sort of just quietly buried them out back by saying, yeah, we had a couple games in development, but they've been since shelved. And especially with them making the announcement of, hey, we're just going to focus mostly on our big brands because the industry seems to be moving forward towards mega brands, is what Yves Guillemot had quoted on his public statement about this whole movement. And it just has me curious on if these games were brand new IPs or if they were part of smaller IPs that are not considered mega brands anymore, especially if it was something like maybe like a Rayman game or something, because for the longest while I thought Rayman was one of the kind of pillar brands that made Ubisoft, but I guess not.
Well, it made Ubisoft. It just isn't a brand now that is furthering their fiscal development. I believe the last Rayman was Rayman. It wasn't Legends, was it? It was Rayman. Shit.
I think it was Legends, and Legends, all it just got was just constant ports and everything.
Right, so, and they ported it to almost everything at that point. But the last Rayman I remember was a mobile Rayman that they did. It was Rayman Run or something. And if I remember correctly, that didn't do very well either. So Rayman is pretty much on the back shelf, unless they want to sprinkle him in on some DLC like they are doing with the Mario and Rabbids game. Like, Rabbids makes more money than Rayman at this point. What I find interesting, I believe the unannounced games are from their IPs. I just do not see these big companies, unless they have a very talented team. And I'm not saying that the people they have aren't talented, but unless it's a studio that has a track record of making excellent games constantly with no problems, I don't see any of these big companies making a brand new IP anytime soon. You might get one or two, I would say, in the next 5 years. Like, if Sony made a new game that's a new IP, I guess that wouldn't surprise me to a certain extent. But I don't see Ubisoft doing that. Like, I don't see EA doing that either. I don't see the 2K doing that either. They're just going to reiterate on the brands that they already have, in my opinion. So my bet is either the unannounced games are either a Splinter Cell game, a Rayman game, or a spin-off of other properties they had. Maybe another Tom Clancy game that they were making. Well, let's also put into consideration, too, that they have put on the back burner X-Defiant and that Ghost Recon Battle Royale game that they announced during the year last year that has quietly been shelved. I think that's been canceled, really. They just haven't announced it. But they've also had issues with getting other games out there in a working state. I guess I should say on that one. And then Extraction didn't do very well either. I bet they were hoping for that to make a good amount of money. That did not gain any traction. And all they've been left this past year was supporting games like The Crew 2, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I think they just had their last DLC for that as well. Yes, that's all they've been doing. And Rainbow Six Siege still makes a lot of money, I think, as well. The Division 2 is still up and running. So that's all they've been doing this past year. They really haven't been releasing anything, except for Mario and Rabbids. And there has been talk that disappointed when it came to sales for Ubisoft.
Yeah, I believe it was also mentioned in the public statement by Yves Schimo that sales were for Mario and Rabbids were a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah, and I don't understand why they thought that was going to be a big seller. I'm not sure what they thought the sales were going to be on that, because what made Mario and Rabbids successful last time was it was releasing during the first year of the Switch lifecycle, which meant there weren't many games out there for this console, so people were looking for games. The other thing is it's a strategy game, and even with a well-known property, strategy games aren't huge sellers, so I'm not entirely sure. I wonder if that was the big game they were thinking that was going to make a lot of sales this year. Because if that was a calculated mistake.
Well, another point that some people have brought up, and I think it's a very interesting and fair point to bring up, is Ubisoft keeps devaluating the hell out of their games. And a great example of this is Mario and Rabbids, that you would have constant promotional sales for the game, where it would just be cut down at like an insanely low price. So we're talking like, the game's on sale and it's on sale now for like $10. Again, just it's one of those things. It's just like okay, well, if you valued it at $10, well, maybe that's the price that I should sit and wait for it to be. Maybe I should sit and wait until this thing's like $10. And of course, anyone who got in late on Mario and Rabbids didn't pay full price. They paid $10 or whatever it was on promo.
Are you talking about Kingdom Battle?
Yeah, Kingdom Battle, the original one. Yeah.
When did they drop it to $10?
They constantly put on sale for $10. They didn't officially drop the price to $10, but it goes on constant sale.
Right, but I understand that because that's been out for 2 to 3 years now. Like, I understand that.
Well, now the price makes sense, but they were doing aggressive price drops even back when it had just released. I think it was like a month after it released. It got like an aggressive price cut from like $60 down to $40. So, and it was just like, okay, well, why the hell are you cutting down the price on this game if it's selling so well? Just, if it's selling well, leave the price alone, especially if you're trying to get as much money as possible for this game. And I think people just kind of caught on to the pattern that, oh, Ubisoft tends to put their stuff on sale. Okay, we'll just wait. No reason to pay full price like an idiot or whatever.
Well, I'm going to push back a little on that because most games drop their prices at a sale within a month or two. That's kind of been the norm as of recently. An example that you've told me is Marvel's Midnight Suns. That came out a month ago, and they're already having sales across all platforms for it being 33% off. That's normal. That's the normal now, to a certain extent, with some games.
Well, yes and no. The example that I tend to go off of is Nintendo. So Nintendo, they value their brands very highly.
Right.
So promo sales on their games rarely happen. And I think that's something that Ubisoft should take to heart, that, just if you truly do believe that your game is truly valuable or truly something that is extremely special, then you shouldn't end up shortchanging yourself, because if you do, then people just kind of get used to the pattern and go, okay, cool. Means I don't have to, sit and wait I don't have to jump on it and get it immediately. Okay, whatever. I'll just sit and wait for this thing to go on massive discount, and I won't buy until it goes on massive discount.
So you think the lack of sales is due to the savviness of gamers knowing that within a month or two the price will drop? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, with Ubisoft games in particular, because
Ubisoft, okay.
Because if you have seen like some of the sales patterns with like the other Ubisoft games, same thing. It follows a very similar pattern. Just okay, well, day one sales, they were okay. They could be better. Okay, what do we do to get more sales, even if it costs us a little bit on the revenue department? Okay, just work with all of our partners for digital sales for the digital copies. Work with our retail partners to put the retail copies on sale.
You are right. That is what they do. I'm going to push back a little on this. I do not think that gamers are getting a lot more price conscious, or they're being more savvy about their purchasing decisions. I don't think that's the case. I think that those type of people are happening more and more, but I don't exactly think that's what's causing the low sales for Sparks of Hope. I think what generally happened was they looked at the sales of the first game, thought it went really well, and they thought, oh, the same thing is going to happen with this one, not realizing that the first one did so well because it had a very limited amount of games that it was going against. It had very limited competition, and that's what caused it to get the big sales that it got. I think that's what the issue is. I do not think that it was a means of people are smartening up, because if there's anything about consumers, really, especially gaming consumers, is they don't smarten up. They don't do that. They will bitch, complain, and moan, and then they'll buy the game for $100 on a special edition. That's just how they are. That's what they do. They've been doing it for years. Is there more people who are wisening up to that? Sure. I don't think that really is what happened here. I think they just over-evaluated the sales potential of the game itself. I really don't think that's the case, because if that really is the case, okay, then they would still sell those units and they would still get that money. It's not really Ubisoft who's going to lose out on the cash that they're going to get from these retailers. It's going to be the retailers who are going to miss out on that cash, because the retailers are going to buy the retailers buy the games at a certain amount of price, regardless of how much they sell it back. I think generally is that they just overshot exactly what they were looking for in that game specifically. That's my thought process.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that they may have overprojected the predicted amount of sales for Mario and Rabbids, but every once in a while I just kind of see some of the commentary just either on game deal boards and things like that, and just the usual talk has been, oh, it's an Ubisoft game. Yeah, it's definitely not worth it to buy day one, because just it's going to go on a sale. Just wait and be patient, and then within 6 months to a year, this game is going to be on crazy discount for like 75% off, and at that point, you can just laugh the savings all the way up to the bank.
I get that there are more people who are like that. I just don't think it's a big enough amount of people that will dictate that much of a sales drop, or that much of a disappointment in sales. That's just my feeling of it. I don't have proof otherwise on this. But
yeah, and I mean, and that's a fair thought too. I'm just kind of speaking to what I feel is the meta for anyone who's interested in Ubisoft games these days, because it just seems like if you have a very, very deep-seated interest in Ubisoft games, then you just hear all the chatter about, hey, this is what you should do if you're looking to buy an Ubisoft game, or just, do you want to get the best edition of this Ubisoft game? Don't buy it year one, because it's going to be a buggy mess, and you're better off just waiting until they do their big, massive update that fixes everything that was wrong with the game on day one and makes it everything that you've ever wanted it to be.
Yeah, that is true. That is true, and that might be that might cause a little bit of people to maybe hold off on buying any game with the amount of games that have been buggy. But that also requires that person to be very into the gaming culture and into the gaming forums, which the vast majority of people just aren't. They're just not that way. And those types of games, like The Division, Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, those go for the not just the more casual people, but just the ones that look for 1 or 2 games a year to play, and they play those constantly. Those type of people usually are not the ones that go to forums and read the articles and subscribe to YouTube channels for those information. So I get what you're saying, and I think there is an amount of people who do that and have learned from that, and I think we're one of them. I don't think it's that big of a swing. I just don't think that that's the issue here. I think, like I said, I think it's mainly that they over-evaluated what they thought the sales potential of the game was going to be. But the three we talked about the 3 unannounced games, and what about Skull and Bones? Okay, Skull and Bones has been delayed again, and this is, I believe, I don't even know how many times it's been delayed, but this was re-announced last year, or it's the year before that.
I want to say, I think so, that, hey, we're having to start over completely from scratch, and then it was this year they had a big, massive presentation going, hey, look, here's what the game's all about, it's going to be cool, it's going to be sick, it's going to be super, super cool, and that was just kind of what it was and everything, so I think that's ultimately just what the game's fate had resigned itself to, and it was just like, okay, neat, just hope they get it done. And of course, they talked a big game that they were working with the Singaporean government on this because just of some of the cultural stuff that they were doing. It almost sounded kind of like they were integrating some cultural anthropology into the game with talking about the glory days of the age of piracy and everything too. So just, it seemed very, very lofty, and I was just like, okay, neat, just looks like they're going the historical angle, I'm all for it. Not a bad deal if they want to go for the historical angle, that's kind of cool. And then now we get this announcement saying, hey, we're going to have to delay Skull and Bones yet again.
The talk about the game has been with people who have played the betas or have gotten in on playing versions of the game is that this game isn't much different from what it was in Assassin's Creed 4 with the pirate battles, and it's not really that interesting of the game. So the talk about the game has not been great. So for this to be delayed again is not looking great for the game itself. My thing with this is there's 2 things to think about this, all right? One is that they must believe or think that this is going to be a game that has a long tail, or it needs to have a long tail in order for it to either get its money back, or for whatever reason, they think this is going to be a long tail game to a certain extent, which is why I think they keep delaying it and everything. Because if it is as bad as people are saying, or if it really is a terrible game, they probably would have just farted this out by now and just let it go and moved on. The other thing basically is, I don't know if this is a sunk cost fallacy or anything, but they're putting so much resources into this game. I wonder if because of that, they just really have no other choice but to sink even more resources into the game to make sure that it's running decently.
I think it might be one part sunk cost fallacy, but I think the other part is maybe a contractual obligation to abide by with the Singaporean government, especially when they discussed about how the fact that the game has been made in cooperation with the Singaporean government. So maybe there's something going on. I don't know, because likely whatever government contract that they set up with the Singaporean government is probably wrapped up under all sorts of crazy NDAs. Maybe there's something to do with it. I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be really interesting to see how this falls out, especially when inevitably, I assume in the next couple of years, just we'll hear about something like, oh yeah, just Ubisoft spent X amount of money on doing a deal with the Singaporean government and ended up being burned by the Singaporean government, or they burned the Singaporean government. Just, it'll be real interesting to see what falls of this, because I presume it's going to be just absolutely insane.
I don't think they're in a position where they can burn an entire government. I think they just signed a contract. And we talked about this off the air with this. I think they pretty much signed the contract where not only where they received funds, of course, but part of the contract is that they had to keep people employed. That they had to run a studio with a lot of people, because a lot of ways that a lot of businesses, what they get with these contracts sometimes is they take the money, they make an office building, they hire the smallest amount of people possible, and they just pocket the money. I'm betting what happened here is that they made guarantees of what they would do, and that the game would be released, and that they would be supporting it for a period of time as well. So I think that's what's essentially happened on this one.
I would say with the reason I am more curious on maybe them burning the government is I think most people will remember this, but there's the whole bit with Kurt Schilling, the government of Rhode Island, and Kingdoms of Amalur. I'm almost wondering if there might be a situation like that brewing with Skull and Bones and the Singaporean government, and that's really where a lot of my curiosity is. If there's maybe some sort of situation going on that they're maybe at odds with the Singaporean government.
I think that what happened with Kurt Schilling and 38 Studios in Rhode Island scared off a lot of not only states, but countries for doing that. And if they were to do something like that, they would probably want to make sure that that didn't happen again. I honestly think that this contract was probably more right now favors Singapore than anything else. Because any other studio, and I think Ubisoft would have been like this too, if it were any other game from any other studio, they would have canceled this. They would have shelved this and be done with it. But something is keeping them from continuing to make this game and to release it. So the only thing I can think of is that a partner, or maybe their government partner, is forcing them to actually keep going and release the game and just keep it running for a period of time.
Really, with Skull and Bones, I think it'll be one of those things that will be interesting to see in the distant future, because I just foresee just this huge documentary on it with just, we burned so much money, it was just a lost cause, but, maybe someone anonymous will testify for some sort of documentary expose or something and say, just the Singaporean government basically twisted our arm around and they ended up forcing us to make this game, and they had a certain expectation, so just maybe that's what we'll see out of this in the future. Just, I think this will be something that'll be one for the history books, in my opinion.
I agree with you. It's going to be really interesting to see exactly what led to them to keep making this game and to release it, with the issues it obviously had and with the bad word of mouth that it was having. So yeah, I would definitely be interested to see what happens with it. We might actually hear more about it before the game's even released, because the story with Skull and Bones now is that it's delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. That's the story of it now. So why don't we move on to, I think, the last part of this announcement from Yves Guillemot, is that they're shifting towards what they call mega brands and long-lasting titles that can reach players across the globe. Here's my question. What's a mega brand?
I think by mega brand, they're saying something that has pretty much everlasting selling power. So think of something like Call of Duty, for example, under the definition that Yuskimo put out in his statement, I would kind of line it up with something like that, or maybe to kind of like a more family-friendly sense. The Nintendo brands. You've got the Mario games, you've got the Zelda games, you've got the Pokemon games. Those are kind of mega brands because they have stood the test of time and they still sell. So that would be my thought on what a mega brand is. And as far as a long-lasting game, I would probably define as something that basically has some sort of a live services element. So Destiny 2, Call of Duty Warzone, Valorant, so on and so forth. So something that essentially can just last forever and just keep churning out games, titles, and all sorts of other stuff that can basically result in infinite monetization to a sense.
See, I look at Mega Brand as something that it's a brand that can be used on different mediums. Like, for example, Assassin's Creed, I guess you can consider a mega brand, quote unquote, because they not only have made games on it, but they've made movies, TV shows, and anime as well with that. Like, that might be a mega brand. The thing that I have trouble with their decision to go through the mega brand route with what they're called, I hate that name, by the way. The mega brand route is that when you go this route, if one of these games has a bad iteration and doesn't sell very well, you're screwing your company down, like, big time. Like, if Assassin's Creed Mirage, I think that's coming out this year, I know that's a smaller Assassin's Creed, but if that tanks, that's going to be a lot of problems that because you're relying on that brand specifically. And what if you oversaturate the brand? Then what are you going to do? Like, people have been asking for a different Far Cry since, I believe, 4. And then when 6 came out, and it was the same old Far Cry, people were like, oh god, okay, same old Far Cry, I guess. Ghost Recon, like, honestly, the only mega brand I think that they actually have is the Tom Clancy name, but that's Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, The Division, stuff like that. Like, I think that's a quote-unquote mega brand. But I think they only have the rights to do Tom Clancy as games, right? Like, they don't actually. I guess that's maybe why they consider the 3 of those things mega brands, because they can only make games from those brands. They can't turn around and make a movie out of Ghost Recon. They actually don't own that. It's the Tom Clancy name that owns that. I don't think the Ubisoft people own the Tom Clancy brand. They just own the rights to make the games. Correct? Am I right on that?
Yeah. I believe Tom Clancy's estate, they technically own. They technically own the Tom Clancy brand, but as far as the games end up being under a licensing agreement to Ubisoft. That basically, I presume Tom Clancy's estate have basically said, yeah, you can make the games with Tom Clancy material. We can even provide you sources so you can build your game's world and universe with it. But yeah, you do not own the Tom Clancy brand outright. So don't think about being clever and going, hey, we're going to make a video game series that also ties in a TV show. Kind of like Quantum Break. Because if they were to try to do something like that, I would assume Tom Clancy's estate would jump on him and say, whoa, slow your roll. You can't make a TV show.
Yeah. I guess the questions I now have is that if Ubisoft is going to go the route of we're just going to stick to our biggest brands, then I guess smaller titles are out the door. Like, are we never getting a Rayman? Another Rayman game? Is that what I'm hearing? Are we not? I mean, they're making a new Valiant Hearts, but it's only on mobile. I mean, are we not getting another one of those? Like, there's a lot of. Are we not getting another Child of Light? Like, is that it? I mean, they're not going to bother with smaller games. We're just gonna go big, and then we'll see where we go from there. If that's the case, I think that's a mistake, to be completely honest. Yes, have games with your big brand, sure, but have a smaller studio doing, like, more interesting, smaller stuff. because you don't know what that could bring. You can have like a smaller game come out and it be huge, and then now you have a new brand. Like I don't understand the reason to do this other than for short-term games at this point.
It sounds like they're trying to do some sort of short-term play to try to get money going, because they're afraid that, and this was mentioned at the end of Yves Guillemot's statement. He was saying that they're making this play because they see a potential downturn in the economy, potentially affecting the spending habits of gamers. Yves Guillemot had mentioned that because of a expected downturn in the economy, he was expecting that potentially player spending might be lessened, so maybe a focus on getting a everlasting game might be the better long-term play, because that means they get a trickle of revenue, even if it's not just consistently $70 all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad idea, but that also reeks of a CEO making excuses as to why the sales are down. Because that to me sounds like he's trying to justify that, hey, it's not my fault, guys, when really it could very well be Yves Guillemot's fault. Like that's more of a cop-out when it comes to what CEOs say to their board of directors to a certain extent. So I'm not entirely sure with that. But that also being said, I mean, Ubisoft did not have a great year last year. I mean, we talked about Extraction. Remember Roller Champions came out last year?
Yeah, I remember you played it to try to grab some footage for one of the podcast episodes.
Yep, and it was not so hot. Hyperspace, I think, is it Hyperspace? That was shut down this year, I think. I mean,
yeah,
they
died a very early death.
Yeah, like they've had some games come out that just did not sell very well. So it's gonna, and then another thing, the Prince of Persia game that was being remade, that's still in development. Beyond Good and Evil 2, that's still in development. Like, they've got a lot of issues that they're dealing with in here. So I think the play for trying to go for bigger games that are live services might be an issue. That might not work in their favor as well if they have one bad game. So and one game that does not sell. So yeah, this seems more like a short-term play, even though Yves Guillemot is saying that it's a long-term play, really. But I don't see that as well.
I do find it interesting that on the list of other games that weren't great sellers this year, that Just Dance 2023 wasn't a great seller, especially since those games typically sell all right. They're not gangbusters, mind you, but I know that they're fairly popular with the casual crowd because, you know, just, hey, popular music, something that you can even use your phone as a kinetic controller to detect your dance moves now. You don't have to have like a proprietary like PlayStation controller or Switch, a Joy-Con or anything, because I know that they moved towards that sort of a model for the Just Dance games, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it was just one of those things that just had me sort of scratching my head going, yeah, I would have thought with, you know, Just Dance, it would have been something that would have gotten at least somewhat decent sales, because those music licenses can't be cheap.
No, they are definitely not cheap. And after the money that a lot of these artists are losing because of Spotify and the streaming music, like they tend to really overinflate the worth of their properties in that aspect, so that they're not cheap at all. So that might be the reason why A, Just Dance is made so cheaply, and B, why maybe it was kind of a disappointment to them this past year. I believe they also have a subscription service as well on that game. Am I right on that?
Yeah, so how the Just Dance games have worked is when you buy the game, you get a very, very bare bones game. It's just, hey, this is the Just Dance game. Yeah, we know. The base game just has 20 or 30 songs, maybe even less these days. Maybe it's 10 or 15 now. I haven't checked out the series in many, many, many years. But yeah, they upsell you almost immediately when you start the game. Because it'll be like, hey, you want to keep up with all the coolest songs and everything? Well, you should really consider the Just Dance premium subscription service. You'll get access to more songs, and when we update, we'll get even more songs. So you'll never run out of things to play with and everything. And that's just kind of how the model has always been. And I think, granted, I think the subscription is like $12 or $15 a month. I can't remember offhand because, again, I haven't really tinkered or looked at one of their games in a long while. But yeah, just you have to pay the subscription just to get access to all these extra songs. And then naturally, when they decide to retire the service, you lose all the songs because naturally they lost all the licensing for the songs, so they can't, in theory, provide you the songs anymore.
I wonder if these companies are going to start finally realizing that maybe a lot of their games that they have as $60, $70 games are probably better off being free to play. I wonder if that's coming soon, because it's a lot of games nowadays that have a live service element or to last a while. They are more and more becoming free to play games, and the last bastion of games that don't do that right now are sports games. I was expecting them to be slow to do that, but maybe there are other games as well that, for example, like maybe Ghost Recon or maybe even Just Dance. Maybe they should start thinking about doing them free to play and not doing a $70 game that you have to purchase in order to actually access it. I mean, that might be the best thing for them to do, just to get people in the door. But I wonder if they're going to start thinking about that aspect of maybe it's time for us to make this a free-to-play game. Do you foresee that maybe they will go the free-to-play route, or do you think they're going to continue trying to make games $70 a pop?
I think a little bit more safer play for something like Just Dance would be to charge a much more significant lower price to get the price of entry much more lower to get more people in. So maybe something like, okay, base copy of Just Dance, $15. Yeah, you get 15 songs, but since it comes out to $1 a song, most people aren't going to bitch. They're going to be like, okay, whatever, that's fine, not a big deal to me. And then log into the Just Dance client, and then that's when they make the upsell to the premium pass, and maybe it's a season pass thing. Hey, we've got season 1 of Just Dance 2025 or something. I don't know when they decide to start this, but yeah, just maybe that's what they do, and then that season pass ends up being like $30 or $40 or something, and then the other thing that they decide to do is, advertise, hey, if you get the season pass, not only do you get access to these songs, but look at all the cool swag you can get for your characters. You can get clothes, you can get accessories, you can get this, that, and whatever. You can deck out your dancer with whatever cool stuff you want to wear, so you can flex on the pores or something. I don't know. At least that's the approach I could see with Just Dance. Tom Clancy's the Tom Clancy games like The Division, I could easily see them just kind of taking a page from some of the other free-to-play shooters on the market, like Valorant or Overwatch 2 even. Just, hey, base game's free. Oh, you want the sweet new character? Well, you're going to have to pay for the season pass and get them immediately. Or, you can grind your ass off and try to get the character by just flat-out grinding. And, if that appeals to you, yeah, you can be total free-to-play trash and get the new character by just grinding almost 8 hours a day for 40 hours a week or something.
Rainbow Six Siege should not be $20. Like, it used to be 60, I know that, but at this point, Rainbow Six Siege should be free. You should be able to just go in and get like the standard characters, or get the recruit character, I guess, and then be on your way. Like, that's my opinion, at least. Like, there's no reason that Siege should be still $20 to access the damn game. You want people to be playing it. You might as well just make it free to play at that point. But I'm at a point now where I think in the next 5 years we're going to be seeing a lot. Like, my opinion, if a game's multiplayer, it's going to be free to play. Period. Like, that's how I think. Like, if there is a multiplayer component at all, that component will be free to play. And if they're going to sell the single player version, they'll try and sell that for like $70, I guess, because people still buy it for $70 for some ungodly stupid reason. But yeah, that's my thought on that.
To your point about some of the other multiplayer games just needing a much more lower barrier of entry, the other thing about Ubisoft games is there's just such confusing price models, and in some cases it's just a pain in the ass to try to upgrade like the game with all the missing content that you've got, or if they put the missing content that you're looking for on sale, they end up making it so confusing, or they end up just saying, oh well, we're putting all the other content on sale, but yeah, not the most current content, you can pay full price for that, and that ends up being a pain in the ass. And my personal anecdote on that is the Steam sale that just concluded a little while ago. And For Honor, I was interested in trying to get my copy of For Honor to a more up-to-date status, because I was just like, oh, cool, I missed out on the Marching Fire expansion. I love the fact that they've got Chinese warrior archetypes, and I would love to get that squared up, so maybe I can do one of the weekly dividend podcasts where me and you just kind of set up sort of like a arena room in For Honor and just kind of square off for fun. And of course I was just like, okay, maybe I'll just do like what I've done with other Steam games, just buy the newest complete edition, and then it'll go, oh hey, technically you own this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece. Know that since you already own these pieces, you're not going to get an extra copy, so you are literally just getting all the other content for this crazy discount price. And I think the complete edition was like $20 or something. And I was like, okay, reasonable enough. Would love that. Add it to my cart. Hi, you can't do that because you own parts of the game. It was just like, okay, well, if you're asking me to buy Marching Fire and then year 6, the year 6 content, I'm literally going to be paying $35 before taxes. I'm not doing that. Ubisoft, don't force me.
Yeah, but I understand why they do that too, because I guess unfortunately a lot of these companies, if you own any part of the game, they want to get more money out of you, but they're willing to let I think what's more important is that they have new people to play the game. So if you already own it, okay, you already own it, that's fine. But if you want the extra content, then yes, you have to pay more for it. But if you haven't owned it yet, the enticement of saying, oh, well, I can get all this content if I just pay this amount of money, okay, I'll buy it then. I'll buy it for that price. Yeah, it sucks, but I get the business sense for that. I just think it's kind of stupid as well. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely get it, but yeah, it was just one of those things of, if you're gonna put all the content on, almost all the content on sale, and the only thing that you didn't have on sale was like 2 or 3 pieces of content, just put the damn catalog on sale. Just don't fuck around with it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Okay. All right, Zero. Well, that is it for this segment about Ubisoft and them canceling games and their financial problems. Friday, we have our weekly dividend. We haven't figured out what we're playing, but I think you hinted at For Honor. Maybe we can do that. But other than that, unless another big story happens, that is it for Capital Games right now. Tune in Friday for the weekly dividend. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
We'll see you on Friday. Bye. Thank you for checking out Capital Games, where we cover the business side of the video game industry. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoyed the video. You can also subscribe to the podcast if you prefer to have it on your podcast feed. And check us out on our socials and email us if you have a question, comment, or suggestion. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll hear from you next time.